So I have the privilege of coming up one more time and introducing a group that gave the boat, the final boat we're dedicating today to Marc Farley. In honor of Marc Farley, I'll pass it over.
Bob, you go first.
Thanks, Sean. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to be a little more long-winded, I think, talking about Farls.
Two lawyers.
That's what you get. My name's Bob Shuman. I'm a lucky member of the class of 1978 at Dartmouth College and a member of the Dartmouth Lightweight Crew Team from 1974 to 1978. I was also lucky enough to be a teammate, roommate, and fraternity brother of Marc W. Farley, 78, aka Farls to the rest of us. In June of 2017, when you lightweights here have won the IRAs and are thinking about your trip to Henley with the Marc W. Farley, a lot of you are going to be saying, who was this Farley guy? What did he do to get such a fast boat named after him? Probably just another rich dude from the class of 78 who bought a boat, gave it to the college, and named it after himself. Well, Farls was rich, all right, but not really in the financial sense of the word. Farls arrived on the Hanover Plain in 1974 without a lick of rowing experience. At that point, Farls fell prey to some very unsavory recruiting tactics, the type that would make a USC Trojan booster even blush. It changed Farls for life. Picture this, freshman week, 1974. It's a warm fall day. Farls and a couple of his new friends were strolling around the green when they noticed a truck and trailer parked on the green. On the truck and trailer, a number of gleaming cedar-hulled cruise shells. Around the trailer, a group of tan, confident, muscular upperclassmen sporting Dartmouth Crew shirts. Surrounding the upperclassmen, a number of attractive young co-eds asking questions about the cruise shells. Also a number of action photos of crew members in tank tops rowing under sunny skies, clearly warm conditions. There's signs placed around the shells that encourage novices to come out and row on the crew team. The smiling upperclassmen speak of glorious warm days on the Connecticut River. And they talk about a 2-week, all-expense-paid trip to a resort in Lake Martin, Alabama. Southern belles, Southern hospitality, Southern cooking, no curfew. Farls took the bait, signed up, and walked onto the freshman crew team. Funny thing about that day was that the upperclassmen forgot to mention a couple of things. Stadiums. Running ball chill in the middle of a blizzard. Carrying heavy wooden cruise shells down what is now this cement embankment, which was then mostly mud or ice. Wearing 3 layers of clothes over that tank top that you saw in the pictures around the green. Watching ice form on the oar and on your oar and oarlock and on the jacket of the person in front of you. And as for that 2-week resort trip, well, Kalijah Lake at Lake Martin, Alabama gave new meaning to the word rustic. Southern hospitality apparently referred to the glares that the prison road gangs gave you when you went out for your morning run. Southern belles were the things that got rung when they were ready to serve dinner at the Kalijah Lodge, and which you got your Southern cooking, which usually consisted of some form of stew containing chicken necks, okra, overcooked, and grits. And that no curfew thing? Well, hell, when you're in the middle of freaking nowhere and you're on the water at 6 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day, who the hell needs a curfew? In lawyer language, a clear case of fraudulent inducement. No matter to Farls, he fell in love with the sport and was hooked. He spent 4 years as a member of the lightweight crew team, training hundreds of hours each year for the pleasure of racing about 30 minutes each spring. For Farls and his teammates, for whom victories and opponents' shirts were few and far between, crew wasn't really about racing or winning. It was about the friendships and all the hard work. Since everyone in this crowd, I suspect, has read Boys in the Boat by Daniel Brown, I was looking at that on flight out and noticed there were a number of quotes from master shellmaker George Pocock, who actually, his company happened to make the MWF 78. One of those was applicable, I think, in this instance, and that is, most ex-oarsmen will tell you that they learned more fundamentally important lessons in the racing shell than in the classroom. At this point, the speaker realizes that if he had his glasses on, it'd be a whole lot easier to read what he's looking at. One such lesson that Farls learned very well is that there's nothing more important in life than your friends. And as a result, Farls was one of the best friends that any of his crew teammates, his fraternity brothers, his family, his classmates could have ever had. The ease with which Farls made and maintained friendships was amazing, and his ability to do so was helped along by a sense of humor, an endearing, self-deprecating sense of humor. He also had the ability to poke fun at others. Farls' ability to poke fun at himself was only exceeded by his ability to turn his rapier-like wit on others, yet somehow never offend in the process. I don't mean to suggest that Farls was perfect. Far from it. He suffered from an extremely rare form of schizophrenia known as Philly Gothamitis. It resulted in his rooting for the Phillies and the Eagles every summer and fall, and then for some reason, in the winter and spring, transferring his affections north to the Knicks and the Rangers. Despite being a member of Phi Delta Alpha, Farls was a terrible beer pong player. And worst of all, he couldn't hit his short irons to save his life. However, he overcame these tragic disabilities post-Dartmouth and became a successful trial lawyer with the U.S. Attorney's Office, ultimately becoming the Vice President of Business Practices and Compliance at Johnson & Johnson. Most importantly, he went on to become a loving husband to his wife Gwen and a wholly devoted father to two absolutely first-rate kids, Jillian and Matthew. About 5 years ago, Farls learned that he had a very rare form of cancer and spent the next 3 years battling that dreadful disease. Throughout that fight, Farls demonstrated the kinds of qualities that all of us would hope to exhibit during a battle like that. A complete lack of self-pity, unflinching courage in the face of a relentless foe, an upbeat but never Pollyanna-ish approach to the challenge he faced, and a graceful acceptance of the lousy hand that he'd been dealt without ever giving up. On September 19th, 2 years ago, Farls passed away. He was 57 years young. While Farls had a very successful professional career, his real wealth was in the number of extraordinary friendships that he developed and maintained over his life. They made him rich, and they enriched the lives of those of us who were lucky enough to call him our friend. The size of today's gathering, which includes many of the members of the class of '78, Farls' family, and others who knew Farls well, is testament to that fact. Shortly after Farls' death, a group of his friends decided it would be a great tribute to purchase a shell bearing his name to present to the college and the crew team that he loved so dearly. And while raising the $55,000 cost for the boat might be a challenge in some cases, that wasn't the case here. With the capable guidance of Alex Stein, a former Dartmouth Cox class of '06, Farls' friends raised $120,000 in the space of about 4 months. So at this point, not only is there a boat that bears his name. There's also a $60,000 plus endowment that will be available to support the crew team in future years. I can think of no finer tribute to a great friend than the dedication of this boat today. And I'd like to thank the many of you here today who contributed to this effort. At this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to an honorary member of the class of '78, Farls' wife, Gwen.
Very much, Bob. I'm Gwen Farley, and it is truly my honor to be here today to dedicate this shell to the memory of my husband, Marc Farley, and to set up an endowment that also bears his name. The last time Marc was here at Dartmouth was at the 35th reunion in June 2013, and it was just less than 3 months before he passed away, losing his battle with cancer. He was struggling then, and he couldn't MC the dinner as he usually did. He had Bob Shuman take over that task. But he famously introduced Dean, may I call you Ralph, Manuel, as the main speaker that night. Before he began his introduction, however, he spoke a little bit about his illness. He said it wasn't about him and his fight against cancer. He knew there were many members of the class who were fighting cancer and many other family members that were fighting along. And it was a battle many people were fighting, not just with him. Marc fought his cancer with a fierce determination and strength. He endured chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. He participated in clinical trials. He never gave up, and he never gave up fighting. He never gave up, and he never gave up fighting. I know that his strength came in part from being an oarsman, having rowed at Dartmouth. A description from the book, The Boys in the Boat, is telling. Physiologists, in fact, have calculated that rowing a 2,000-meter race, the Olympic standard, takes the same physiological toll as playing 2 basketball games back-to-back, and it exacts that toll in about 6 minutes. Competitive rowing is an undertaking of extraordinary beauty, preceded by brutal punishment. Unlike most sports, which draw primarily on particular muscle groups, rowing makes heavy and repeated use of virtually every muscle in the body. And finally, harmony, balance, and rhythm. They're the 3 things that stay with you your whole life. Without them, civilization is out of whack. And that's why an oarsman, when he goes out in life, he can fight it. He can handle life. That's what he gets from rowing. Marc got that from rowing, and so much more. I know there were many times during Marc's illness when he remembered the strength and endurance of the boys in the boat from so long ago, and it kept him going. When we drove away from Dartmouth after the reunion, Marc looked back at the boathouse, and he said, "I hope this is not the last time I'm here." Sadly, it was Marc's last visit. Though Marc is no longer here with us, we are so very happy and honored to be dedicating this shell to be back here at this boathouse that he loved. Every time I came to Dartmouth with him, we came to the boathouse. My kids and I saw him row for the first time at the 25th reunion. And we saw how difficult it is to get the boats in the water, especially if you hadn't done it in a while. But despite the nerves and the cold and the onlookers, Marc loved those alumni rows. He loved being back here at this boathouse. He loved being back in the boat. He loved his Dartmouth teammates. So on behalf of the entire Farley family, I want to thank you for this tribute to Marc. It is heartwarming and touching that so many people came together to fundraise, to organize, to plan, and to spend time with us here today. And this dedication is particularly fitting for Marc. He walked onto the lightweight team as a freshman, and he rowed for 4 years. And though he didn't continue rowing, he maintained a commitment to health and fitness throughout his life. He became a marathon runner and an avid cyclist. The dedication of the boat is even more special because it was a group of Dartmouth teammates and classmates, friends and families alike, that came together to do this. And as Bob said, the idea to purchase the shell and dedicate it to Marc arose shortly after he died. The fundraising and organizing began instantly. I want to thank the Marc Farley Memorial Shell Committee, co-chaired by Bob Shuman, Jim Bassett, Jim Bullion, Celia Chen, Bernie Drury, and Chris Riley, and made up of 20 Dartmouth classmates and Dean Ralph Manuel as its honorary chair. While holding down their day jobs, this amazing group raised, I thought it was $110,000, it was $120,000 to buy this state-of-the-art racing shell for the Dartmouth crew team. They raised enough money for the boat and to set up an athletic endowment in Marc's name, so the crew team can use Marc Farley funds for its extra needs over the years for as long as those funds grow. I also want to specifically thank Alex Stein and Bob Shuman. Alex, the athletic fundraising director here, was my main contact with Dartmouth, and Bob, a boatmate and lifelong friend of Marc's, was my main contact with the fundraising group. The two of them kept me informed of the progress of the fundraising and of the boat making throughout the process. I thank you for your kindness and generosity. I'd also like to thank Dartmouth Rowing for having us all here today. And I want to just say that Sean Healy, the head coach who I just got to meet for the first time today, wrote a very nice thank you note a while back. He noted that the dedication of the boat in memory of Marc was a way to show student athletes here today how it's possible to stay connected to the team after you leave Dartmouth. And we have a real life example of this already, because Mike Guadagno, who currently rows for you guys, is the son of one of Marc's very good friends that he worked with at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Marc would just be thrilled to know that the son of one of his friends is already rowing in that boat. I also just want to thank everyone from the class of '78 who has been there for Marc and our family throughout Marc's illness. Your friendship over the years meant the world to Marc and gave him strength during his illness, and your friendship continues to give us strength. Shuman always said he rode in the seat ahead of Marc, so Marc always had his back. But all of you had Marc's back, and now you have our backs, and we will never forget it. The 35th reunion was Marc's last time here at Dartmouth, but with this boat, this dedication, and the endowment funds that has been generously set up in his memory, he will never have to say goodbye or leave Dartmouth again, and we are eternally grateful. It is my honor to dedicate this boat to Marc W. Farley.
Somebody's got to. Thank you all. You're so kind. Come over.